Hi, my name is Kim McQuitty and welcome back. Last year I did a webinar for young marrieds who are now been married up to 10 years, and I called it I'm a Wife Now What? And I took this time to actually just help young married women who are in different seasons and stages of their marriage relationship with some things they may have been processing and going through, maybe some challenges, and also give them some tools and equip them to have a better marriage for marriage enrichment. All marriages are going to experience challenges at some time, but marriage isn't always challenging. It's not always a fight every single day. There are seasons when you get on your nerves, you get on each other's nerves more than the other season. But there are seasons when things are challenging. There are seasons when things aren't as challenging. So I wanted to give the women something to equip them for the challenging seasons. I wanted to give them something to equip them to better their marriage. And I also wanted to help them with some things they may have been going through at that time. So in order to serve them in the best way possible, I did a survey. I put out a survey and I wanted to know what were some of the things that you were going through in your marriage that I can speak into. And I answered these from an anonymous standpoint, so no one knew who I was speaking to. We were on a Zoom call. No one knew who particular I was speaking with, but a lot of them had the same challenges. Number one was being communication. I just think that's just going to be a challenge in a marriage no matter what, because you have a different communication style than your husband. He has a different communication style than you. Just communication is the number one thing, along with finances. But there were a number of things that these women have having challenges with that I wanted to speak into. So I took my time and just kind of spoke into each one of them. But I want to share some of those things with you. Again, these are young married women, married up to 10 years. So they've been married anywhere from 0 to 10 years. So this first one has been married for 1.5 years. And her challenge was control and perspective. One of the things I probably can perceive about this young lady, control, is she maybe got married at a later age. And there's just some things that she needed to relinquish to allow her husband into, not just saying that he has to totally take control over it, but just allow him into some of the things that she may have been dealing with, and even perspective. When you have been single for a while, you have a rhythm and you have a cadence of how you do life. You just do. And it takes a lot for you to undo some things in the way that you do them in order to include your husband in it. So one of the things that this young lady was having was control and wanting to continue to do things and not include him, not in a controlling type of manner where he wasn't, his say-so wasn't a part of anything at all. It was just going from me to we. Learning how to incorporate him moving forward. Now that she has a husband, there's some things that he wants to be a part of that she probably will want him to be a part of, but learning how to not be so independent and learn to relinquish to some things in her marriage. So the next one is this person has been married 9 months, and this almost goes into what I just said, transitioning from making independent decisions to decisions as a couple. I just spoke into that. It takes some time. If you have been single all of your life and you get married at 40, it takes some time for you to realize, okay, now every decision that I make, I have a partner, because he's impacted by the decisions that I make. I'm impacted by the decisions that he makes. We are one flesh. And it's going to take some time in order to bring that level of harmony into your marriage relationship. It's not a bad thing. It's what it is. It's what it is. And you have to cut yourself some slack if you're finding that this is taking a lot longer than you would have desired or you would have wanted to. Being able to make those decisions together, sitting down, having the conversations, being able to share your heart, being able to take into the consideration somebody else's thoughts on the matter. It's not all how you feel or all how he feels. It is what is best for the marriage relationship. So this person has been married only 9 months, but that's still 9 months. I mean, it's still new. It's still new. 9 months is not a lot of time to actually be not having to have the challenges of being on one accord. It's still new. It's still new. Schedules and communication. They've been married for 7 years. Schedules and communication. Again, I mentioned in the first part, communication is a huge part of challenges in relationship, because we just are two different people and we communicate differently. We hear things differently. communication is a lifeblood of relationships, and it's something that we all need to work on, not just in communicating with our spouses, just communicating through life. It's just a skill set that we all have to be cognizant of. But schedules, what are the different schedules, different work schedules, different sleep schedules, early riser. Some can be going to bed later at night. It's coming together as one flesh. It's going to take some time. It takes time to become one. It takes time to get in a rhythm. It takes time to get in a cadence. And you have to be patient with one another during that process. Again, communication, 6 years communication, 3 months communication, 10 months communication, 5 years communication. That was the number one problem or challenge that these women were having in their marriage relationships. This young lady's been married for 2 years and learning how to resolve conflict in a better way. Conflict. When conflict is done right, it can lead to a deeper level of intimacy. When done right, conflict can lead to a deeper level of intimacy. Conflict full of pride can yield all kind of bitterness, resentment, unforgiveness. But done right, you can get a better understanding of where the person is coming from. When there's conflict, it's always your turn. What I mean by that, when there's something that's off, something that's bothering you, it's your turn to go say something to your spouse, and vice versa. Everything I say is always two ways. You just happen to be an audience of women. Whenever there's conflict, there's always your turn. You go and say what you need to say, how you need to say it, in the right tone. And I have a video that I've done called Watch Your Ways, Watch Your Words, and Watch Your Watch. I'll link it below. How critical it is for your body language, for your tone, for your timing. All of that's very important and plays in conflict. Timing is everything in conflict. Honey, we need to talk. Right before he's going to bed at night is not the best time to bring up something super sensitive that he may not have all the cognitive ability to be able to process because he's so tired. His guard is down. Earlier in the evening would be better to do that. Sometimes dealing with challenging situations, you need to move it away from the home. You probably need to go out for coffee. You need to go out for dessert. Change your environment. Let me say this. You will find out what works and what does not work when you're having conflict. The longer you're married, the longer you'll see or you'll know what's the best time to address certain matters, what's the best environment, what's the best place, or if they even need to be addressed at all. There's times in your marriage you just have to pick your battles and pick your peace. Pick your battles and pick your peace. Some things are not worth going to war over. Some things they're just not. They're just not. There's things you're gonna have to keep. Let's say when you're dating, your eyes are wide open, and when you're married, you have to keep them half closed, because there's just some things just not worth it. It's just not worth tearing up the relationship. But there are things that, yes, before the sunset, we need to have a conversation about this. The next young lady says, been married 5 years, that communication again and expectations, unmet expectations, is the number one reasons for disappointments in marriage. Expectations, unmet expectations, the things you thought were going to be a certain way, even expectations that have not even been communicated. How can one expect to meet a need that has not been communicated? How can one expect to do X, Y, and Z if it has not been communicated? Expectations have to be communicated if they want to be met, if they're realistic. Does your husband even have the ability to meet that expectation? Does he even have the ability to even meet that need? Unrealistic, unmet expectations yield a lot of disappointment in relationships. You should expect what your husband is capable of doing, not what he is not capable of doing. What's possible for him, how he's wired, how he thinks, what he's all about, the intent of his heart. Expectations should come, you should expect your husband to do anything that the word requires him to do as a man. That is not even anything to be talking about as far as negotiation. Whatever the word says concerning his biblical roles as a husband, you have every right to expect that of your husband. But I'm talking about things expecting him to be somebody that he's not. Expecting him to become something that he's not. Expecting him to do something he's never done before, or don't even have any cognitive ability to even know how to do it because you saw somebody else and their relationship and how that works for them. That's not fair to your husband. If that's not who he is, if that's not how you married him, if that's not the type of person, not the type of guy that thinks that way, that's not fair to put those unrealistic expectations on a man and expect him to do something that he does not know how to do. He does not know how to do it. It's not fair to him. And that can be, you know what that means. That you know what it means to ask your husband to do something that he cannot do or does not possibly able to do because that's not who he is as a person. Release him from that. Release him from those unmet, unrealistic expectations of something that he is not. I have one more for you. This particular person has been married 3 years, and she's talking about her spiritual connection, spiritual intimacy. No one wants to marry a man who's spiritually anorexic. As the head of the household, you want this man to be able to be in tune with God. You want him to know the voice of God, and you want him to be obedient to God. You want your husband to be sensitive to the voice of the Lord and not just hear it, but obey it. And it can be very challenging to be married to someone who is not in tune in their relationship with the Lord. How do you handle that? You handle it, the Bible says you can win without a word. You're not always beating him up about things. You're not beating him over the head with the Bible. You're not telling him First of all, you need to pray for him. You need to pray for him, not about him. Praying for him. Praying that God, that you gave this man to me to be the head, not because he's wiser, not because he's smarter, but it's because it's a part of your divine design. God, teach him how to be the man you've called him to be. Teach him how to lead our family. Approach it from a place of empathy. Approach it from a place that maybe he just didn't have the right example set before him. Maybe he just didn't understand what his role was. Maybe he didn't count up the cost before he got married and said, I do. Praying for him. That God will send a man, a godly man to come alongside him that he can be accountable to. It starts with prayer. It starts with you covering him in prayer. It starts with you allowing God to do the work in his heart. It starts with you partnering with him. Not being so quick to criticize him and judge him when he's not doing things correctly. But asking God for help, asking God for wisdom, asking God for guidance. Because first of all, he's his son before he was your husband. Yes, the spiritual connection can be off, but you know what? When you submit that to God and you allow God to lead you and love him as he is, and you pray for him and allow God to just do the things in his heart, and you're being his partner, not his pastor. You're not beating him over the head with scriptures and telling him what the word says. The Bible says you can win him without a word by your chaste behavior, your gentle spirit. That's what my Bible tells me. And you can do that. An unbelieving husband, not so much as don't believe in God, but just not believing that it requires the prayer, the faith, the spiritual disciplines in order to live this Christian life as a son, and also that they can spill over into the marriage. If he's to wash you with the word, he needs to know what the word of God says. And you do that by praying over him. Everybody's going to have challenges in their marriage. The challenges can come to make you better, or they can break you. They can make you better, or they can make you better. It's a choice. It is a choice that we all make. And my prayer is that when you do have those challenges, is when you do face things in your marriage that aren't so lovely, that are very challenging or just very difficult, that you would just ride the wave because it's a season, because it will pass. It's something you're going through to get to. And as you continue to go through the seasons of your marriage, go through seasons of life together, it gets better and better and better and better. You think you loved your husband on the day that you married him. But oh, to ride the waves, oh, to go 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years with him, and then see how much more you fall in love with him, and how many things you overcome, and how many things you guys have gone through together, and you're still together, and you're still standing strong. Is nothing like it. Nothing like it. So whenever you're having challenges, make sure that you're covering him in prayer. And you're asking God to help him. You're asking God to help you in those challenging seasons, and I promise you that he will. If this has been a blessing to you, I ask that you will like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video. Take care. Bye-bye.